On Friday, May 23rd, 22-year-old UCSB college student Elliot Rodgers killed 6 people. This was after he explicitly declared his hatred for women in not only a 140-page manifesto, but in several YouTube videos.
You girls have never been attracted to me. I don't know why you girls aren't attracted to me, but I will punish you all for it.
And after such a tragic event, here are 5 things we should be talking about. Misogyny kills. I don't know what better proof there is than this past incident. Elliot Rodgers is a mere product of our environment, an environment that encourages misogynistic acts like street harassment or rape culture. This is not an individual problem, this is a cultural problem, one which we don't like talking a lot about, and that's probably because misogyny is so ingrained into our minds in our society. Why aren't people talking about the truth, the evidence that Elliot Rodgers left for us all to see? Why aren't people talking about the fact that misogyny kills? That's probably because if we actually took time to realize how dangerous misogyny really is, that would mean a lot of people letting go of power. That would mean no more slut shaming. That would mean equal pay. That would mean a lot of men letting go of the privileges of sexism. The incomparable Dr. Brittney Cooper recently wrote an article titled "White Guys Killer Syndrome: Elliot Rodgers' Deadly Privileged Rage," in which she spoke about how every year we hear of a white male who goes on a killing spree, and yet we're not talking about the systems of whiteness and patriarchy that continue to produce men like Elliot Rodgers. Elliot was an upper middle class white heterosexual male in our society, meaning that the door was open to an abundance of privileges like power, money, and women, along with a toxic sense of entitlement. So it's no wonder that when he didn't get what he was entitled to, like having countless dates and sleeping with women, then that enraged him. So much so that he thought that his happiness, his entitlement, was worth the slaughtering of multiple people. I continuously read articles about machismo within the Latino community or masculinity in the Black community, but we have yet to thoroughly discuss, to my knowledge, the dangers of white male entitlement. Let's not fool ourselves into thinking that Elliot Rodgers was a faceless killer. He had a race and he had a gender. Had the killer been a woman of color, a person of color, you bet your ass that that would have been a part of the analysis and would have made headlines. This tweet sums up the racial bias that not only exists in our culture, but in our media reporting. Well, he's just a nice guy who's just a little mentally ill. No! This was a blatant attack on women, and yet the media continues to be fixated on Elliot Rodgers' mental health status instead of focusing on the facts and evidence which is dripping in misogyny. And to reference Dr. Brittney Cooper yet again, if any mental health conversation is to be had after this atrocity, let it be about white male privilege. I agree with Dr. Cooper that the white male privilege illness allows men to move throughout the world believing that their happiness, well-being, and pleasure matters more than the death or the suffering of other people. After watching Elliot's own disgusting videos, Elliot's own family called the police in order to evaluate him. But the police completely dismissed Elliot as any type of threat. They actually described him, and I quote, as polite and courteous. Later on, Elliot himself writes in a manifesto saying that he's lucky that the police didn't question him further, or else they would have found all the guns that he was hiding. Even though 61 out of 62 mass murders in the United States in the last 30 years have been perpetrated by men, 90% of which have been white, we still don't see individuals like Elliot Rodgers as suspicious or dangerous. And I ponder, would the police have reacted the same had Elliot Rodgers been a black or brown man? My guess is no. This heinous crime could have been prevented had people checked their racial biases and prejudice at the door. Racial biases and prejudice are a prime example of why someone like Elliot Rodgers was described as polite and courteous and therefore dismissed by the cops, while someone like Trayvon Martin was described as suspicious and therefore killed. Women around the world took to Twitter with the hashtag #YesAllWomen in order to better illustrate the violence that they experience in their everyday lives. The simple act of women sharing their voices and experiences became an international conversation. I'm not a consumer of lies, and what happened on May 23rd was nothing less than an attack on women. And yet, mainstream media likes to tell otherwise. Make your voice heard and force them to listen. We have the power to change the narrative.